It's time to put this Tour de France in focus. Alberto Eli has the yellow jersey and he's worn it well, but there comes a time to climb. It's Tour tradition. In the mountains, Lance Armstrong took control of the Tour de France last year, but his element of surprise is gone. He has to dominate the world's best climber and break down the machine like Jan Ullrich. To win, he'll need help. Today, the 2000 Tour de France will change completely. We are in the Pyrenees Mountains where we will determine today exactly what Lance Armstrong's real chances are at winning a second consecutive Tour de France. Hello again, everyone. With Phil Liggett, I'm Adrian Karsten. The real old-timers of the Tour de France, not necessarily this one, talk about the old days when up in the mountains, wild animals would come out of the woods and attack the cyclists and chase them up the climb. I think attacking and chasing will be the order of today as well, Phil, but I don't think wild animals are going to be involved.
No, but you're absolutely right. But the weather, as you can see here at the finish at Otakam, is very, very bad. In fact, they're forecasting snow on the high peaks of the Pyrenees, certainly heavy rain, possibly high winds. So the riders are going to start today in a very bad mood. Above all, Adrian, they must be careful on the descents.
The mountains always have their way of kind of sorting out this bike race. We always really identify the real race contenders when we're up here.
Yes, now we haven't seen them all week. They've stayed anonymous in the pack, but they've no doubt been assessing each other's strengths, certainly. Today, as it's the only day in the Pyrenees this year, I think they'll watch each other. They won't necessarily attack, but if one of them does, I fear they all will.
Team Telecom is very impressive. Of course, they have Jan Ullrich, who is one of the race favorites here in 2000. They also have the yellow jersey. What are the dynamics on that team? We find out right now from Tour veteran Paul Sherwin.
Tactically, every team is going to have a hard time. You know, the first day that you come into the mountains is always a scary proposition. And especially with weather conditions like this, it's going to make it even more dangerous. But for Team Telecom, they can only cross their fingers and hope that Jan Ullrich doesn't have any problems. Because if he does, they're going to have to sacrifice the yellow jersey of Alberto Eli. Their goals are much further down the road. But even Lance Armstrong, he's had haste to get down here to the mountains because he wants to see just what his form is like as well. If the challenges do come today, I'm sure it'll come for men like Fernando Escartin, Richard Virenque, and Marco Pantani. But for everyone, the first day in the mountains is always a worrying day.
We were worried yesterday because for the second time in 5 days, Tyler Hamilton was in the middle of this mess. He crashed but got back up on his bike and is on the road again today. It's going to be a lot of support to Lance Armstrong. Now, here's former U.S. Pro Cycling champion John Eustace.
Well, Adrian, all reports have Tyler Hamilton ready and able for today's first day in the mountains, his first important rendezvous of the Tour. Now, Marco Pantani has been complaining. He says that no one except for himself has had the courage to control this bike race. And now it is really the time for the U.S. Postal Service to take the front and ride like the favorites that they are. Now, that means starting off with their big men, the Flatlanders, to control the race from the start to the base of the mountains. That means the George Hincappies, the Frankie Andreos have got to control this bike race to the base of the mountain and then get as far up and over that mountain as possible before launching Kevin Livingston and Tyler Hamilton to guide Lance Armstrong up the last two brutal mountain passes of this bike race. Now, their objective for today, we're not really sure. There's still a long way to go in this bike race, but this is really bad weather for Jan Ullrich, and Armstrong goes really well in it. It could be a good day to take a lot of time out of the big German.
John, we're going to see a lot of changes in the overall standings today. First mountain stage, Alberto Eli, with a total time of 33 hours, 8 minutes, and 34 seconds, leads the Tour de France. Therefore, he has the yellow jersey. Fred Rodriguez, the U.S. Pro Cycling champion now, had a great first week. Lance Armstrong, 5 minutes, 54 seconds behind Eli, could do a lot today to diminish that time difference. Frankie Andreu in 72nd position in his 9th Tour de France will be a big support. These are other notables, including Abraham Olano, close to his home down here, and Jan Ullrich, another man to watch, 6 minutes and 37 seconds behind. In the very first mountain stage in last year's Tour de France, Lance Armstrong took total control with his attack on the climb up to Sestriere. He trained right here in the Pyrenees throughout the spring, even had a crash in these mountains in early May. But right now is none the worse for wear. Now, in these mountain stages, the difficulty or severity of a climb is categorized by a number. For example, a Category 4 climb is much easier than that of a Category 1 climb. Or Category 8C on the map is at the high end when the length steepness and distance of the climb is off the scale in degree of difficulty. Total of 5 climbs in today's stage 10. It becomes rather graphic when we take a look at the profile of today's route, which is brought to you by Lincoln. Stage 10 is 128 miles from the town of Dax to the top of Otakam on a nasty day. Rain and strong winds are really going to be a problem at the top of each mountain. Close to the border between France and Spain, the Pyrenees will dictate the tactics for the rest of this Tour de France. Now, take a close look at the length and incline of the climbs today. There's a total of 5 mountains, 2 of which have been designated as Or category. That's the HC, including the classic climb to Otakam, the finish line for stage 10. The first real race favorite to go on the attack, and when he does so, is going to be a very significant moment in this 2000 Tour de France. For the 5th day, Alberto Eli of Team Telecom wears the yellow jersey and will defend it. Actually, the man who wins today's stage 10 up at the top of Otakam may not take the yellow jersey. Telecom, as we say, has a very interesting situation. In the rain and cold, we leave the town of Dax starting stage 10. A very significant day on the 2000 Tour de France. Defending champion Lance Armstrong, Jan Ullrich, Abraham Alano. All of these men will be involved in today's race. The 2000 Tour de France on ESPN2 is off and rolling with stage 10.
Wood, leather, adrenaline. The new Lincoln LS, Motor Trend Car of the Year.
If I weren't a cyclist, I would be a... Boy. Tough questions. If I weren't a cyclist, I'd probably be, I don't know. I don't know.
You've always believed that your dreams would come true. And all of the time, we've been rooting for you. For long years, you put your life on hold. Now this is your chance, friend. Go for the gold. Don't fall. Now that the pressure is on, don't fall. Just keep your energy strong. So follow your star. 'Cause you've got a friend in Power Bar.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of the 2000 Tour de France is presented by Lincoln, American Luxury. By Mongoose, go ahead, cross the line. And by Festina Watches, European styling since 1902 and the official timekeeper of the Tour de France. Welcome back to stage 10, 127.4 miles. On this day in the Tour de France, our very first mountain stage. You know, the memories of the first day in the mountains last year have become the motivation for the defending Tour champion. It's a rider profile brought to you by Mongoose. On the heels of capturing the yellow jersey in a most impressive ride during the Stage 8 individual time trial, Lance Armstrong seemed poised and relaxed for the first mountain stage of the 99 Tour. With the Postal Boys assembled at the front of the peloton, the ascent toward Sestriere began and the defense of the Maillot Jaune was on.
3 U.S. Postal Boys looking after Lance in yellow, and one rider behind him. I think it's Tyler Hamilton.
As the weather turned, so did Armstrong's aggression. Withstanding several attacks from his closest challengers, the Texan became the Tour's lone star.
Now he's going to try and tear this race apart.
He's out of the saddle, sprinting up this climb now. He's trying to put a real clenched fist onto the Tour de France today, and he's flying up this mountain.
A physical and mental delivery here by Lance Armstrong to all of his rivals in the Tour de France.
This man has managed to come back from the face of death, and now he's riding at the front of the Tour de France like a Trojan.
Armstrong completed the stage with his most dominant ride of the Tour, once again separating himself from his nearest rivals.
I wanted to answer some of the questions about my ability to climb, and hopefully today I did some of that.
Now, today, the only question that remains is, can Lance Armstrong come up with a performance like this again? In Stage 10, there has been some excitement in the first 50 miles here today. Some solo breakaway attempts, but no real major moves by Lance Armstrong or the other race favorites. The Kelma team is considered a mountain climbing team, and one of their best climbers is Javier Ochoa, who grew up in this territory. He broke away earlier, followed by Nico Matan. Now, the sprint bonuses are behind us, along with the flatland, so now the competition for the mountain climbers jersey takes over. And on this mountain climb, it was Ochoa going over first. He gets 10 points, followed by Matan with 7. Then came Jackie Duran. On the more difficult climbs, obviously, you receive more points toward the polka dot jersey as the best billy goat. On the Col de Marie Blanc, which is a Category 1 climb, very difficult. Because Ochoa stayed out front and goes over first, he gets a total of 30 points, followed by Matan and Duran with 26 and 22 in that order. The big question we all want to know the answer to: how strong is Lance's support squad this year? Because this is not the same Postal team that rode the Tour last year. 3 of the members are new. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin are watching them closely at the front of the peloton. Let's join them now.
Well, looking here, there's the gap. Now it's 15 minutes back to the group containing Lance Armstrong here. There's Salvatore Camesso has got away in a small group of riders. This is a very strange pattern, Paul, because there's an awful lot of riders ahead of the main field now.
Well, the riders all over the place. Ochoa has now just left Matan behind, but I have to say this is a great performance here by US Postal Service. If you look here, Phil, they've now, for the first time really since the start of the Tour de France, taken complete control on the mountain stage. Armstrong is sitting in the back position there, letting all of his teammates set the tempo on the early slopes of this climb here, the Col de l'Aubisque.
Well, none of the riders in front of this principal part of the peloton in the Tour de France really are going to worry the likes of Lance Armstrong or Jan Ullrich. All of the projected favourites are in this group. Pantani, in fact, did stop briefly. One of his teammates stopped with him and he got very swiftly back into the group. Up the road, it's still being led by the same 2 men, Ochoa and Matan. Jackie Duran has been on the ground, but he's got up and he's riding some 6 minutes behind the 2 leaders, while Michael Sandstad, we never see him, but he's there in 4th place, 11 minutes back. And then this little raiding party by Salvatore Camesso and Botero Manthabo, they're at 12 minutes plus. And then a group containing George Hincapie has gone clear. And George, in fact, is about a minute ahead of the group we're looking at the moment.
That's a very clever move by George Hincapie, because Hincapie's not one of the great climbers on the US Postal Service team, but starting this climb with an advantage means he might go over the top of the Col de l'Aubisque in a group ahead of Lance Armstrong and be of some use to him in the latter kilometers of the day. But this is what US Postal Service, Phil, have been waiting for on all of these flat stages so far. 9 days have gone by, and now they're assuming control, and they have a lot of confidence in Lance Armstrong, who was really actually quite eager to get to these mountains at last.
Well, you can see the conditions here as we climb up towards 1,700 meters on the Col d'Aubisque. It's not all good news to America. We've received some very sad news that Jonathan Waters crashed on his way down the Marie Blanc, and we understand he has retired from the Tour de France and is in the ambulance. No further news on him, but that will be the 2nd time in as many years.
Very, very difficult start for him and the Crédit Agricole team as well, because they had high hopes for him, and that would be 1 man less really to help Bobby Julich in the big mountain passes. But at the moment, US Postal are the team doing the great job. The yellow jersey, Phil, had a serious difficulty on the first climb of the day, but a daredevil descent by him pulled him back into this group. So he's comfortably in the group with all the other leaders. 71 there is Marco Pantani. I reckon it's going to be a big showdown on the final climb of the day.
It's really as we expected, but it's not a little bit strange as much. A number of riders have slipped away towards the end of the previous climb, the Marie Blanc, and it was there where Ellie lost a minute, but he got back on and he's now back in that group, but he had a little bit of a shock at the time. So the situation at the moment then, the US Postal Service have assumed command of the peloton in the Tour de France today. It's now down to the others to see if they can match the pace setting here of the men from the US Postal, as their newcomer, Stefan Jergaard, is the rider here setting the pace. I think today he's finding himself, he's the sacrificial pig, I think, because he will be left by the team when we get on towards the top of this climb.
Now, Lance Armstrong and the U.S. Postal Service boys are really not all that concerned about Javier Ochoa, who is way out front. He really is no threat to the yellow jersey in the overall Tour competition. We'll be back with more of Stage 10 of the 2000 Tour de France in just a second.
Which is the most formidable athletic threesome?
Allen Iverson.
Chipper Jones.
Venus Williams. Felix Trinidad.
David Wells.
Dick Trickle.
Until recently, such a debate would have raged endlessly. But now, through the miracle of the intranet, ESPN.com brings you 3Play. You log on, you register, and every day you get 3 new athletes. And whoever gets the best stats wins a mint. 3Play at ESPN.com. It's free, it's sports. Give me the briefcase. It's money.
You are not a number. You are not a nameless resume on a faceless website. You are not corporate cannon fodder. You are not a cog in a machine. Your destiny will not be determined by a keystroke. You are not a disposable commodity. You are a human being. Need a better job? Connect with a counselor at thingamajob.com. Life 2.0 begins here.
Yaffa blocks.
Interlocks.
Yaffa blocks.
Stacking blocks.
Yaffa blocks are like furniture.
Better.
Interlocking storage blocks.
Stack any which way. Stack them right up to the ceiling like 2 skyscrapers.
Snap on a Yaffa closet rod.
Wow! An instant closet.
Throw your stuff into the Yaffa block drawers.
Poof! Your room is spotless. Go Yaffa.
Call 1-800-GO YAFFA for your free catalog.
Very significant day on the 2000 Tour de France. It's our first day in the mountains down here in the Pyrenees, and that represents the first big battle between the real race favorites, including Lance Armstrong of the United States Postal Service. You know, in that unforgettable stage up the Sestriere almost exactly a year ago today, Lance shocked his competition by putting 39 seconds between himself and Alex Zulu, who had been breathing down his neck. He eliminated Fernando Escartin, Richard Virenque, and Abraham Olano, and from there on held on to the yellow jersey all the way to Paris. That's the time differential, sponsored by Festina Watches. Out on the road. The question is, how strong is the United States Postal Service team? Because they're going to have to support Lance if he's going to win a second consecutive yellow jersey. On a very tough day, element-wise, we rejoin Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin.
Well, swinging off the front of the main group here now, having done a stalwart job as a pacemaker, is the young newcomer to the U.S. Postal Service, Stefan Gergaard. He's now done his job and he's fallen back, and he's left the rest of the strongmen of the team to keep up the tempo. But before we've lost now, I think it's 5 riders that we know of out of the Tour today.
And before the end of the day, I reckon we'll lose an awful lot more. There is Marco Pantani, the man who was really looking to try and shine again when we got into this final climb of the day. But you can see who feels that he can win the Tour de France, because on the front of the main field, Lance Armstrong has put all of his teammates. Right there in first position is Cedric Vasseur, a man who many years ago was a leader of the Tour de France and wore the yellow jersey before it was ripped off his back almost by Jan Ullrich. But you can see this is a drilled squad now. They've sat down in the main field for a long time, in fact 9 days since we left the very first stage of the Tour de France and the individual time trial of Futuroscope, and now they're coming into their own. This is the mountain terrain, and this is where the Tour de France is won or lost.
Well, let me give you an update of the riders we know are ahead. Our cameras are concentrating here on the main part of the peloton, because that's where we expect to see the counter moves coming from. But as we start the climb here of the Obisque, for a couple of kilometers up, it's still out front is Ochoa, Javier Ochoa. He's dropped again Nico Martin. And then the third man on the road is around about 7 minutes behind is Jackie Durand, and that despite a fall himself on the descent of Marie Blanc. Then we've got Michael Sandsted, who's been on his own for the whole of the day so far in 4th. Salvatore Camesso is in the group of 3 with Botero and Manthabo of Benesto. They're 12 minutes 40 back. Odriozola and Verheyen, the rider who was in the break the other day, they are next at 13 minutes, and they're joined by Pascual Lorente in the same group. Then Pascal Hervé, who moved away towards the end of the climb of the Marie Blanc, he's on his own, almost 14 minutes down. And then comes a group of George Hincapie, Antonio Tauler, and Paolo Salvadelli, and Britain's David Miller. They are in a group some 14 minutes behind the leader, while the peloton are just over 15.
Well, the main field there have just gone through Aubonne, which is a small town around about 13 kilometers from the summit of the Col de l'Aubisque. The Col de l'Aubisque is the highest mountain of today's stage, going out at 1,709 meters. And after that, the riders will take a small descent before then attacking the Col de Soulor, which really at a category 2 is not really a major problem. It's the climb that they're on right now which is the most difficult. It climbs up for almost 18 kilometers from the summit, from the valley to the summit at the top, and then they've got that very long descent down into the valley of Argelès, and then the final showdown of the day must certainly come on the slopes of Hautecam. You can see a lot of pink jerseys there. That's the Mercatone Uno squad, and today Marco Pantani has been very much to the front of the bike race, and I get the feeling now that Lance Armstrong is ready to set himself up for something special as well, Phil, because he's got all of his team on the front here. And it's good to see the Italian champion Michele Bartoli, who was out of the sport for almost 12 months with injury, bouncing back there. He's on the wheel of Armstrong right now. But this is the face of the man who is concentrated, who has decided that today is the day when he will try and show the Tour de France that he is a climber.
Well, he looks quite relaxed, but here's the yellow jersey, and he's been dropped again here on the Aubisque. He's beginning to lose contact with the main peloton. He's fighting because he's in yellow, but it looks as though Alberto Elli, in fact, is not having a good day at all.
Well, it's a tough day for him. I think the pressure of having kept the yellow jersey on his shoulders for 4 days is really now starting to tell. The man in second place in that competition has also been left behind on the first call of the day, Fabrice Gougo, but he did manage to make a descent, a good descent, and reintegrate the main field on the valley roads. But certainly once we get to the steeper slopes of the Col de l'Aubisque, we'll have another sorting out. And again, I would expect to see a group of 30 riders going over the summit together.
And there's still 2 very tough mountain climbs still to come in Stage 10.
They're young, and some just think that way. The people and companies that were born digital, or reborn, as comfortable with data as the last generation was with the telephone, as long as they have the right set of tools and the right company behind them. WorldCom, Generation D.
The 2000 Lincoln Navigator. It's so luxurious, so comfortable, and so peaceful. You can almost hear a needle drop. The best-selling full-size luxury SUV in America is also the most powerful in the world. If you're interested in hearing more, drop in.
My apartment has a TV. I watch RPM tonight for my knowledge. The more I watch, the bigger it gets. Someday, I will share my knowledge with the world. That will be a fun day.
Javier Ochoa has led this long stage almost from the moment it began. He will surely be the new king of the mountains by winning all the climbs, including the third one of 5 in today's first mountain stage of the 2000 Tour. That is the Col de l'Aubisque, or category, the most difficult classification, so he gets 40 points. Now, the real action in the race is right here. Lance Armstrong tucked in with other race favorites.
This is the Armstrong group down here, with Marco Pantani's Enrico Zaina setting the pace. And I'm wondering if he's preparing a springboard for little Marco to attack shortly.
Well, just check out the position of Marco Pantani in this group. He's actually moved forward. He's got rid of the racing cape he was wearing before. He's got rid of the arm warmers. He's stripped down to the lightest he can possibly be. And certainly I would be expecting to see him when we get to the steeper gradient to launch an attack, because this In the old days of Marco Pantani, certainly was his terrain. The mountaintop finish was an area where he was almost unbeatable.
He started the day such a long way behind overall, and he's still a lot of ground to make up in the Tour de France. 86 this morning, 11 minutes off the race lead. He will fly up the classification on time tonight because a lot of the riders in front of him, of course, are now many minutes behind him, including the race leader, Alberto Elli. But the men he would like to be ahead of are right alongside him and losing no time.
There he goes.
And there he goes. It had to come. He is such a predictable man. Now, can he launch an attack that they can't answer?
Well, Zuller is the man taking up the chase, and immediately after that is Lance Armstrong himself. Armstrong, wearing number 1, was expecting the attack to come from Marco Pantani, as was everybody else in that group. Michael Bogert now is trying to pick up the pace, and Zuller has gone straight over the top of Pantani. Pantani now must respond, but Armstrong is riding comfortably, Phil, there in 3rd place.
Well, look at that. And Alex Zuller, what a cheek, has decided to continue the move here. Bit of a shock for Pantani, that, but he's recovered from it. And in fact, Armstrong deciding not to follow Zuller, but to follow Pantani. But all of a sudden, 3 stars of the Tour de France, with 2 wins and 2 second places in the years gone by, have left the others behind.
Well, Marco Pantani almost telephoned that through. Armstrong comes up alongside Zuller here now. He, in fact, is going to catch Pascal Hervé pretty rapidly now. He will go by him like a breath of wind. Armstrong, too, has stripped himself down. He's got rid of those arm warmers. Pantani has to accelerate out of the saddle to get onto the American's wheel. Zuller is comfortable now in 3rd position, and these are all of the remnants of the breakaway being blown away.
Well, they're coming back from the Escartine group now, including Savadelli. Here is Jan Ullrich, and Jan Ullrich, I think, has been caught here. Ullrich is trying to react, but I think we might be seeing Jan Ullrich in a bit of bother.
Well, these guys are really climbing the climb, Phil. They're accelerating away. You can see Ullrich is using a massive gear at the moment. This now looks like Peter Luttenberger, who's coming forward from the Once squad, trying to pull his man Abraham Alano back into contention. But the thing is, the way those climbers went out of the gap there, it really was quite remarkable. Ullrich can't follow the acceleration of Luttenberger, so he's not in a great day.
He's not having a great day, and he might be a bit outside his form here. But you know, that was a fine piece of riding by Lance Armstrong. He was waiting for the move and clearly had the strength there all of the time. And he's now trying to get rid of, and may have got rid of, Alex Zuller. There he is. This is shades of the road to Sestriere last year.
Certainly same weather conditions as well. Alex Zuller came across the gap there pretty rapidly, and Armstrong now is the man setting the pace and putting the Pirate in difficulty. Lance Armstrong, people criticized him last year and said, how can you become a climber? He said, well, just look at my medical records, Phil, from 1996. I weighed in then at 82 kilograms. I now weigh in at 73. That's 9 kilograms difference between then and now, and that's almost 20 pounds.
And that 20 pounds is making the difference today on the slopes of Hautecam, because Marco Pantani tried it, but now he's having to follow Lance Armstrong on the climb here. Armstrong didn't start it, but he looks like he's got every idea he might like to finish it, because Armstrong now clear of some real favour to the Tour de France and heading up towards the group, which, don't forget, when they started this attack, was only 2 minutes and 20 seconds up the road.
Well, they're really flying up this climb. He looks over his shoulder occasionally just to see what the face of Marco Pantani is telling him, and it doesn't seem to be showing very much emotion at all at the moment. It's amazing to see that Armstrong is actually putting the man regarded at one time as the best climber in the world into difficulty. Zuller now has been picked up by the group of Jan Ullrich, and Ullrich, I think, Phil, will just have to ride this climb at a fairly sensible tempo. The attack now, in fact, is coming from the Lotto squad, and look at this, Armstrong accelerating once again, and there's a gap now starting to appear between Lance Armstrong and Marco Pantani, getting out of the saddle, going back into the saddle, trying to find a little bit more strength, and he's popped.
Well, I never thought I'd see the day when Lance Armstrong would blow away the man we've always referred to as the finest climber we've ever seen in the current peloton of cycling, but he started it and Armstrong has finished it. And now Lance Armstrong has written off the riders on the climb of Hautecam and shaken the head there by little Marco Pantani. Now Armstrong has got his chance here to end this terrible day in the Pyrenees right up there, having taken time off all of the principal players. He could well ride up to that group now containing Escartine.
Phil, this is the moment in this tour we've been waiting for. All the past champions right together. Now we find out who the best is. Armstrong, Pantani, or Ullrich. The tradition of championship bouts and top-rated challengers continues not only here in France, but also on ESPN2's Friday Night Fights, a super lightweight championship bout coming up Friday evening at 9 Eastern Time on ESPN2. Lance has attacked. Now, he's trying to deliver a knockout blow to his competition. Can Pantani and Ulrich hang on?
The 2000 Lincoln Navigator. It's so luxurious, so comfortable, and so peaceful. You can almost hear a needle drop. The best-selling full-size luxury SUV in America is also the most powerful in the world. If you're interested in hearing more, drop in.
Hey world, you were always chasing a rainbow.
Tour de France continues tomorrow at 7:30 on ESPN2.
You're looking at the back of Lance Armstrong. Same back that Jan Ullrich and Marco Pantani are looking at, as a matter of fact, as Lance has scratched them off the list. Next on his list, Fernando Escartin and Richard Veron. Let's go to Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwood.
Armstrong moves on now, relentlessly cutting his way through the Tour de France today that's been shattered all over the Pyrenees, letting them all run like a great fisherman and then reeling them in one after another. Now he comes up behind Fernando Escartin. Yes, I keep getting his name right. Fernando Escartin and also Richard Veron. There is nobody in front now who Lance Armstrong will fear in this year's Tour.
Well, Bolocchi is the Festina rider just on the left-hand side, a young rider who we'll see an awful lot more of in years to come in the Tour de France. He will be happy now, Armstrong, wearing number 1, because he's controlled the climbers on their terrain. Very sensible riding as well, Phil. Tactically, he's ridden this perfectly. He actually let them go out on the attack. He let them have their play. And as soon as he came to the final climb of the day, he rode across a 2.5-minute gap and nailed them back.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, Verenk doesn't know he's there yet. I doubt whether Escartin does here, number 21. Let's see the reaction when he goes past them, because it looks as though he's going to move forward. Here's good news for our man out front. He's going through now with 5 kilometers to go for Javier Ochoa. But boy, he's getting tired. I hope he hangs in there.
Well, this is the group of Jan Ullrich with Marco Pantani. Alex Zuller is the next man a little further up the road there. Zuller now all on his own, setting the tempo. Great ride by Michael Boga there, 41 for Rabobank. He's staying in contact with the other main contenders of the bike race here. No sign of Laurent Jalabert today, and again, it would appear that in fact the big man from Olano, he's disappeared as well.
Yes, he has. All the others are here, and it's highlighted one problem for Jan Ullrich. He hasn't got the legs he's had in the past. It's his first time back in the Tour for 2 years. Zuller is being left here. Christophe Moreau is struggling a little bit. Must be feeling he's riding well, because he's a long... Oh, and here he goes again. Lance Armstrong is now going to break them all up, because, you know, having seen occasionally that man up front, Ochoa, he looks, Paul, as though he is hitting the wall. Lance could reach him possibly.
It'll be very hard indeed. The time gap is a long way back from Ochoa to Lance Armstrong. Armstrong's attack there to try and catch out the climbers didn't work, though. They were immediately right onto his tail. The first man to react there, number 32, was Manuel Beltran, the Mapei rider. But Armstrong now will just set the tempo on the front of this climb and hope that he can reduce the deficit that he has on Ochoa, the lone leader on the road, the only man in front of this group right now.
Well, this is Mancebo here, and this is Richard Veron. Armstrong is just punching those pedals. Little Beltran here is suffering like he's never suffered in his life before, number 32. and he's hanging on. Escartin and Heras are hanging on as Armstrong kicks again, and this time I don't think they'll answer him.
This is unbelievable. He's got serious power going on here, Lance Armstrong. He's not actually attacked them now, Phil. He's just putting the hammer down, looking over his shoulder to see what sort of difficulty he's putting them into. He's controlled and he's absolutely decided on doing the job in hand. He's a very concerned rider right now because he wants to try and blow the climbers away and give himself even more of an advantage before we go up to the Mont Ventoux, a climb that he himself is always scared of. He was actually in difficulty there in the Dauphiné Libéré earlier on this year, and now he wants to try and make sure he's got a big buffer.
In other words, just put some extra time between himself, Pantani, and Ulrich. Speaking of extra time, it's ESPN2's newest highlight show every Monday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to highlight all the goals from Major League Soccer's action during the previous week and announce the player of the week as well. Monday nights at 11 Eastern Time on ESPN2. Marco Pantani, Jan Ulrich, and Alex Zula, who was second in last year's Tour de France, are catching up on the remnants of the breakaway. Way up the road is Lance Armstrong. More of Stage 10 of the 2000 Tour in a moment.
How does Lotrimin AF start curing athlete's foot? On contact. How does it start to relieve the itching and burning? On contact. So if you can't wait to feel better, there's nothing like starting the cure on contact. Lotrimin AF, the killer cure.
Contenders, 3 continents, 1 winner. The new Lincoln LS. Motor Trend Car of the Year.
How does Lotrimin AF start curing athlete's foot? On contact. How does it start to relieve the itching and burning? On contact. So if you can't wait to feel better, there's nothing like starting the cure on contact. Lotrimin AF, the killer cure.
These are not highlights from last year. This is Stage 10. This is Lance Armstrong.
The hammer is down. He really is flying up the mountain, Phil.
It reminds me of when we last came up Oterkamp with Bjarne Riis doing this.
Absolutely. Armstrong now knows that he can blow everybody away. He's only got one thing to do now, and that's to try and reduce the deficit on Ochoa. I don't think that Spanish climber is going to be caught today because he really deserves to win the bike race. These are the climbers. There in front is Lance Armstrong riding away from them. They are just trying to survive. They are absolutely suffering to stay in his slipstream.
Well, you know, he's destroyed these guys. They are in all sorts of trouble. Virenki's going up forward now with Massabo. 4 kilometers for the little man at the front, but that was a long 5th kilometer. It seems to have taken about 3 minutes or so to get up to the 4 kilometer banner, but he's still there. It gets a little bit easier and then he kicks again.
A little bit easier, that's only relatively speaking,
Of
because
course.
this is a very difficult climb. He's been climbing now, Phil, for 8.5 kilometers, just hoping to survive. He started the climb with a 10.5-minute advantage, and the last time check we got was pretty close to just 6 minutes on this man Armstrong. Armstrong wearing number 1, just looking over his shoulder. He's very controlled at the moment, Phil. He's just keeping an eye on what sort of damage he's doing to the rest. The man coming across here at the moment, in fact, is Mancebo, the small Spanish climber. In fact, it isn't Mancebo, it's Jimenez who's made the recovery.
It's Jimenez who looks to be coming best of the rest here. He has got good form in the mountains, and he sprinted back up to Lance Armstrong. He's the only one that's been able to achieve that today. Armstrong looking over his shoulder and seeing who's coming, and he's going for him again. That's the time to hit the man before he can settle.
Well, he really is playing with everybody today, but Jimenez has ridden back sensibly. He's ridden himself back to the tail wheel of Lance Armstrong as they go under 5 kilometers to go. You know, there's only 1.5 kilometers between them. Well, this could be a big turn up for the books. We've got to keep our fingers crossed now for Ochoa because he really does deserve to win this bike race. 5 kilometers for the other guys on the road.
Well, it was 10.5 minutes at the start of this climb, and now it is just under 5 minutes. Armstrong to the leader.
Armstrong now quite content to set the tempo at the front. He won't ask for any help, I don't think, for Jose Maria Jimenez. He switched across the road just to have a look at the face of the Spanish rider and a quick glimpse there of the kind of gears that are being used. This is the man that was regarded as the king of the mountains, the fastest man on all of the ascents. And today, Phil, he's been put into serious difficulty. He showed flashes of his former glory in the Tour of Italy recently this year, but he hasn't got it here on the slopes of Otakam, and neither has Jan Ullrich.
No, you can't take time out in big chunks like Ullrich and Pantani have done over the past year and expect to come back and win a race like the Tour de France, because that's also Polo Nico Matan coming by. Another beaten man here in Alex Zuller. I've never seen so many tired big names in the Tour de France for years. These fellows have all tried and have been destroyed. Armstrong let them all do it and then has ridden them off.
Lance is so calculating. On his bike and in his mind, he went over and over this stage.
Bob Vila tells homeowners how to get out from under credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila, and these are offers to get credit cards. It's pretty easy to get them, not so easy to get out from under the bills. How many credit card bills do you get each month? 3, 5, more? And how much interest are you paying? 16, 18%? Do you even know? And don't be fooled by introductory rates that only last a few months. You can eliminate those bills. You can stop paying that high interest. Here's how. Just call Home 123. The loan counselors at Home 123 will show you how to turn your high-interest credit card bills into one bill that's probably a lot less than you're paying now. And the interest may even be tax-deductible, unlike credit card interest. Imagine just one bill a month and money left in your pocket. So, if you own your own home, call Home 123 right now and discover how to get rid of all those credit card bills. Call 1-800-HOME-123 or visit us on the web at home123.com. It's how to get the money you need.
This Sunday, they're both vying for division titles, but first they'll have to battle each other. NL batting leader Todd Helton and the Rockies look to outslug Jason Giambi and the A's. And big bat Sammy Sosa looks to light up the scoreboard, but Jermaine Guy and the Royals hope to shut him down in KC. The ultimate road trip rolls on. A's Rockies at 8 on ESPN. Cubs Royals at 8 on ESPN2. Sunday.
Yet for this man at 2 to go, but at least he'll take a lot of encouragement now. They're the Basque flags of his country, and he's being cheered all the way now to the summit.
Well, Armstrong is less than 1 kilometer behind him on the road at the moment, but at this pace, it's taking around about 2.5 minutes to ride a kilometer. You can see this man, he knows now what's happening behind him. He's digging deep, he's out of the saddle. He's trying to find a little bit of energy from somewhere in his body, but he's not sure where it's going to come from. Jimenez is having a hard time, though, Phil, staying on the wheel of Armstrong. 3 minutes is the advantage for Ochoa, and 6 minutes back to Marco Pantani.
But 2:57, Paul, that's another half minute just taken off by Lance Armstrong here, who's continuing to ride away. Well, I said earlier, and I was partly joking, it was a tailwind finish for Ochoa. It might be the only thing that keeps him away now.
The only thing that might save him. This has been a dramatic climb up here at Otakam, and Armstrong accelerating once again. And I don't think Jose Maria Jimenez has got anything left now to respond to the final acceleration of the American, who last year rose from the ashes, really, after that cancer nearly took his life. He is now he's now building up on the victory of last year and looking really to blow away every one of his contenders on the road here of Otakam.
He is looking ahead now to see if he can spot the lone leader on the slopes of Otakam. The roads become long and straight shortly. He might see him as he comes round the bend. Look at the massive crowd up here now. Many, many of them are Spanish people. They've just shed this Spanish rider because Armstrong has ridden away for the US. As the Spanish rider, Jimenez, has lost contact. He might come back, He's still got some fight in those legs.
Well, he's a great bike rider. You see him nudging it up a gear there.
Oh.
He's going to dig deep. He wants to stay with Armstrong. He knows this too will drag him up in the overall rankings. But Armstrong is riding his own race now. He's riding a man against man with the man who is at the front of the race at the moment, and that is Javier Ochoa from Kelme. But Armstrong still, Phil, is using a very small gear, just ticking those pedals over, keeping his cadence up high, which is really quite remarkable. This is like the climbers of old. He really is ticking it over at 80 or 90 RPM at the moment. He is now under 2 kilometers to go to the finish. He and Ochoa in the same kilometer on this climb.
I reckon they're separated by 800 meters now. As Armstrong started this climb, 10 minutes behind him, and 800 meters is all that remains as we head up towards the red kite.
Well, this is it, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. He has to pull back 1 minute on each kilometer of this final ascent of the climb here to pull back this man, Ochoa. The crowd, Phil, look at them. They're going mad. They're going crazy. They really want this guy to win. They love and respect the bravery of this man to go out on the attack 175 kilometers from the finish in conditions that really have been grotesque.
Oh, it's going to be oh so close now. I don't think he's under the kilometer, but into the barriers, and that will help now. But Armstrong still looking there to hunt down the last man who survives ahead of him in the Tour de France. He knows now the yellow jersey goes to his hotel tonight and to his room as we come to the 1 kilometer to go for the man who has been the outright hero of the day, although that now is highly debatable.
I think he just might do it. He's got 1,000 meters to go once he goes under that bridge, the red kite. The Flamme Rouge in international cycling, every bike rider will be looking for it, but they look for it more than on any other stage in the mountains because they know then that relief is only just around the corner. But Armstrong is around about 600 meters behind this guy at the moment, and a big sprint to the line could change it completely. It is Ochoa, Armstrong. The difference in the speed is remarkable.
Well, Armstrong is just trying to finish this off with a sprint finish here, and that might be what exactly it will be. We're 900 meters from the finish with the race leader, and Armstrong is racing up towards the 1,000 meters to go. Where he's found this strength from, I don't know. He has torn the field apart here. The crowd here cheering him on, but no, not with quite the same enthusiasm because they want that Spanish rider to win.
They want him to win. They want him to get over the line in first position. A lot of Basque flags out here as well, Phil. We're only just over the border from Spain, and they've all turned out in their numbers to see him. There's the American flag for Armstrong, 1 minute and 39 seconds. He's ripping into that advantage that Ochoa has. I don't think he's going to do it by the line, but it's going to be very, very close. They should be in the same straight.
They will be. There is the kilometer across the road now. In the climb of Otakam, Lance Armstrong has taken 9 whole minutes off the leader, and it'll be probably 9.5 minutes by the line. Here he is now, living in a world of his own and suffering like he never has in his life. And will the top of Otakam please come as soon as possible?
Javier may be in a world of his own, but he might have a visitor here pretty quick because Lance Armstrong just going over the 1,000-meter kite means he's only 500 meters behind Javier. The finish when we return.
The 2000 Lincoln Navigator. It's so luxurious, so comfortable, and so peaceful. You can almost hear a needle drop. The best-selling full-size luxury SUV in America is also the most powerful in the world. If you're interested in hearing more, drop in.
Johnny Mac, Mac Nasty, the super brat, 77 career titles, and still had time to make the scene at Studio 54. Mac was what you would call a Renaissance man.
He's Johnny Rotten, and he's Johnny Rotten going to Wimbledon.
You cannot
cannot be serious!
Take away the emotional outburst of McEnroe, and it's an artist. He held the world in his hands.
John McEnroe, Wednesday at 7 on ESPN, and then it's Moberg at 8 on ESPN Classic.
To get Sports Century, call 1-800-CLASSIC today.
After leading stage 10 for nearly 100 miles, Javier Ochoa may actually lose this stage to Lance Armstrong. This is incredible.
Well, it was 1 minute and 23 seconds under the final kilometer there for Lance Armstrong. If, in fact, Ochoa looks back down the straight there, he will be able to see Armstrong boring down upon him. Very shortly, 1:14, it's gone down even more. This man has got to find a bit more strength, but I think, Phil, he has done it. He has survived. He had 17 minutes at one stage. He had 10 minutes at the bottom of this climb. It doesn't really matter how much is left now because I think he's going to get the win.
Never has the voice of Daniel Manjas, the speaker of the Tour de France, sounded so good because he knows now he's coming up to the line. This has been a superb ride. He could never have thought when he broke away and joined Jackie Giron on the flat roads outside Dax that it would lead to victory at the finishing line at Otakam. And at 175 kilometers later, he is turning into the home straight, while Lance Armstrong of the United States is continuing to close in at an alarming rate.
Well, he's done it, Phil. He's now inside the barriers. He's now inside the signs that are ticking off the meters to go. Just 200 meters to go for him now, and the straight will be in sight.
As he comes up the barriers now, the headlights are on, but miraculously the crowd has lifted. He gets the victory, Javier Ochoa, and this is a superb victory today in the Tour de France. 6 hours plus in the saddle, but watch the back of your screen there, because here he comes. Lance Armstrong, as the clock ticks down, is racing to the yellow jersey of the Tour de France. He was the first man last year to wear it and became the second and only man after that. Today, he'll be the fourth man. Is he the last one in this year's Tour? Time will tell. But Armstrong today has destroyed the field in the Tour de France. The minutes are ticking off once he hits the line. A determined and ultimate impression of Lance Armstrong today as he comes up to the line. And look at that time gap. 10 minutes 35 at the bottom, 41 seconds at the top.
Absolutely remarkable. He really ripped away from everybody and all the serious contenders now. Had better go back to the drawing board and think about their plans.
And we were wondering if Lance Armstrong could come up with another performance like we saw last year. I think we have the answer. Here's the race summary brought to you by Locherman AF. 30 miles into stage 10, Javier Ochoa had a lead of 17 minutes on the field. The race favorites were all watching each other when Richard Virenque attacked on the third climb of the day, forming a dangerous breakaway of climbers. Then Lance attacked. At the base of Otakam, he was over 10 minutes behind Javier, but made up a minute a mile to finish only 42 seconds behind the stage winner. Lance Armstrong, in defense of his 1999 Tour de France championship, is back.
You've always believed that your dreams would come true. And all of the time, we've been rooting for you. For 4 long years, you put your life on hold. Now this is your chance, friend. Go for the gold. Don't fall. Now that the pressure is on, don't fall. Just keep your energy strong. So follow your star, 'cause you've got a friend in Power Bar.
Wood, leather, adrenaline. The new Lincoln LS. Motor Trend Car of the Year.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of the 2000 Tour de France is presented by Locherman AF, the #1 recommendation of doctors. By Power Bar, don't long. And by Lincoln, American Luxury. Very exciting stage 10 is now complete. We're looking at Alex Zula, second in last year's Tour de France. He was always breathing down Lance Armstrong's neck last year. He may not be doing so this year. Just absolutely dejected after what he saw Lance pull. Here comes Jan Ullrich, when the day started, considered a contender as well. John Eustace is standing by with our new men in yellow.
Lance, after your victory last year, the critics said, well, he won. There was no Pantani. There was no Ulrich. You feel you've answered those critics today?
I think we started to answer them, but it's a long race and it's not over. And sometimes in life you need those things. You need a little kick, and not to say this was revenge, but I heard the remarks last year, and I thought a little bit about that today. So it's a long ways to go. Those guys they'll still be factors in the race.
You rode your team at the front very early in the race, and you found yourself isolated on the Col d'Albisque. Do you think that was a miscalculation?
We wanted to ride the race like we were the favorites, so we did that. But in hindsight, not a good idea. Because I was isolated, and I was lucky that Ulrich had a teammate and Pantani had a teammate. We won't make those mistakes again.
Plan for the next days. You got the yellow jersey. There's a long way to go to Paris.
Yeah, there's a long ways. Like I said, I learned last year it's hard to defend this jersey, and several minutes doesn't mean the race is over. So we'll see.
Before we all get carried away, remember that Marco Pantani still is one of the best mountain climbers in the world, and this was just the first of 7 days in the mountains. Only 1 day in the Pyrenees, but there are 6 up in the French Alps, and this man can pull off an awful lot. He's going to be about 10.5 minutes down, but is still very much a threat, as Lance said. This man led for 100 miles today. For a Spaniard to win in the Pyrenees at the top of Haut-de-Camp, a blessing for him and a real treat for the rest of us. Fantastic effort today, actually holding off Lance Armstrong in the last 1,000 meters. Javier Ochoa, in 6 hours, 9 minutes, and 32 seconds, rides the 128 miles of Stage 10 and gets his first ever stage victory on the Tour de France. 42 seconds behind Lance Armstrong in an unforgettable ride. Now, significantly, the closest man to Lance Armstrong from the U.S. Postal Service team was Tyler Hamilton in 39th position. Significant because now that you have the yellow jersey, you have to defend it. John?
There's elation at the U.S. Postal Service camp, obviously, but there's also concern. Where were the climbers? Armstrong was isolated over the last 2 mountain passes, and in particular, Kevin Livingston was missing, and he was supposed to be the one to shepherd Armstrong up the last climb towards victory. Tonight, there's going to be a lot of discussion at the Postal Service camp on how to defend this yellow jersey, because the Postal Service team is going to have to raise their performance up a notch if they're going to take this jersey all the way to Paris.
And that's a long way to go. How significant was this day? Lance Armstrong started the day 5 minutes and 54 seconds down on first place. Now he is up by 4 minutes, 14 seconds on Jan Ullrich. Marco Pantani back in 25th position, 10 minutes, 34 seconds down. The balance of the Americans, unfortunately, Jonathan Vaughters, for the second year in a row, has to abandon after crashing. Richard Virenque still going to make an effort to win a stage in the mountains. He still is France's favorite son and an outstanding climber himself. We're almost halfway home, 1,018 miles into the 2000 Tour with 1,258 to go. We're out of the Pyrenees tomorrow as we wind our way toward the French Alps. Lance Armstrong from Austin, Texas is back where a champion belongs, in the yellow jersey. But now comes the defense. Totally different tour than it was last year. Yes, the element of surprise is gone, but not even Miguel Indurain attacked in the mountains like Lance did. Tomorrow evening on ESPN2 at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we will cover Stage 11. The defense of the yellow jersey begins for Lance Armstrong.